Dead Art Studios Wikiart deep dive, and today we're going to do Françoise Gilot, or her full name, Marie-Françoise Gilot, born in November the 26th, 1921, in France, Neuilly-sur-Seine. My French is not good. She was French. Her art movement was primarily Cubism, but I'm not sure I'm going to entirely agree with that, as we hopefully will discuss. And she did painting, drawing and design. So Marie-Françoise Gilot was born on, should I say, November the 26th, 1921. She's a French painter, best known for a long, stormy relationship with Pablo Picasso, with whom she had 2 children. Gilot was already launched as an accomplished artist, notably in watercolours and ceramics, but her professional career was eclipsed by her social celebrity. And when she split from Picasso, he discouraged galleries from buying her work, as well as unsuccessfully trying to block her memoir, Life with Picasso. Now, I have read her memoir, Life with Picasso. It's definitely well worth a read, and the main takeaway you get from Françoise is how much she loved art and wanted to be a painter, to the point where I think when she met Picasso, she felt maybe there was a serendipitous thing about it where she had no choice but to have a relationship with him. I think she at times loved him, from what I can gather from the book. She respected him. She thought he was an amazing artist and painter. In the end, I think she always respected his art, but didn't necessarily respect him. She met him when she was like 21, and he was like in his 60s. It was, even at that time, an unusual relationship in terms of age gap. But her friend warned her and said, "You can't do this, Françoise." And she says, "It's a catastrophe I don't want to avoid." So she had that relationship with Picasso, and in some ways it catapulted her into the limelight. But do we know if she would have been a famous painter in her own right without Picasso? We do not know, because what happened. But she was certainly pursuing art, pursuing painting against her father's wishes, and loved painting, as did Picasso, and that really is what drove them on together for so long. I think some of the discussions in terms of the philosophy of art and the technical aspects of completing art and things like lithography and different types of sculpture, things like that, it really sort of pushed them on together, and maybe it was a meeting of minds in that sense. So she was born in Neuilly-sur-Seine. Now I'm butchering that one. To her mother, Emilie Gilot, and her father, Emile Gilot, and Madeleine Gilot. Right. Her father was a businessman, an agronomist, and her mother was a watercolour artist. Her father was very strict. He was very well educated, and he made sure that Gilot was extremely well educated. He wanted her to enter a field like law, and when she finally said she was going to be a painter and also sort of get together with Picasso, he beat her heavily, and she ran away to live with her grandmother. Gilot began writing with her left hand as a young child, but at the age of 4, her father forced her to write with her right hand. As a result, Gilot became ambidextrous. She decided at the age of 5 to become a painter. The following year, her mother tutored her in art, beginning with watercolours and India ink. Gilot was then taught by her mother's art teacher, Mademoiselle Muge, for 6 years. She studied English literature at Cambridge University and the British Institute in Paris, now University of London Institute in Paris. You can still find actual interviews with Françoise, should I say, when she is in much later life, and she does some TV interviews. I've not got around to watching them yet. I really should. It's an amazing opportunity to sort of almost now eclipse the time gone by. We're talking 100 years ago in some senses when some of this stuff was happening. Okay, while training to be a lawyer, Gilot was known to skip morning law classes to pursue her true passion, art. She graduated from the Sorbonne with a BA in philosophy in 1938 and from Cambridge University with a degree in English in 1939. She was an extremely intelligent person. You can tell that from reading her book. And I think when people nowadays talk about Picasso and how he sort of took advantage of women and things like that, let's not forget the agency this woman had. She was profoundly intelligent and very single-minded, and she certainly did things her own way and was the only one really of Picasso's sort of lovers or relationships to actually sort of escape and not have a really upsetting end. She continued going, carried on painting, and she lived a long and fruitful life. Gilot's father wanted his daughter to be just as educated as he, and as a result oversaw his daughter's education very closely. She was tutored at home beginning at a young age. By the time she was 6, she had a good knowledge of Greek mythology. By the age of 14, she was reading books by Edgar Allan Poe, Charles Baudelaire, and Alfred Jarry. I'm doing that one in French, don't know if that's French. While her father had hoped she would go to school to become a scientist or a lawyer, Gilot was frequenting museums in Europe to understand and gain appreciation for the masters. When Gilot was 17, she attended the Sorbonne and the British Institute in Paris and had a bachelorette degree in philosophy. Is that a bachelorette or baccalaureate? I don't know. Degree in philosophy. She received an English literature degree from Cambridge University. During 1939, Gilot's father still wanted to complete a degree in international law, and out of fear that Paris would be bombed during the war, Gilot was sent to Rennes, France, to begin law school. At the age of 19, she abandoned her studies in law to devote her life to art. She was mentored by the artist André Rodza. In 1942, after abandoning law several times, she returned on the insistence of her father. Gilot studied law for a second year and passed the written exams but failed at all exams. This goes on and on, I think. Now, interestingly, when she first met Picasso in a cafe, she was a painter and she wanted Picasso to come and see her paintings, and he did go and look at her paintings. So, it's not like she became a painter after meeting Picasso. She very much was a painter before. At 21, she met Pablo Picasso, then 61. Picasso first saw Gilot in a restaurant in the spring of 1943. His mistress, Dora Maar, was devastated to learn that Picasso was replacing her with the much younger artist. It was very interesting. Dora Maar was another one of his muses on long-term relationships, and it's very interesting. These guys used to just go out and sort of hang out together, and they would sort of put up with this kind of behaviour of Picasso in some ways. Dora was sometimes there with Françoise, and even his wife, who was a Russian ballet dancer. She would sort of follow them sometimes to the south of France, and Picasso found this all very amusing. It must have been absolutely horrifying for the women involved. She was devastated that he was replacing her with a much younger artist. After Picasso and Gilot's meeting, she moved in with him in 1946. They spent almost 10 years together, and those years revolved around her art. He painted La Femme Fleur. Then his old friend Matisse, who liked Gilot, announced that he would create a portrait of her in which her body would be pale blue and her hair of leaf green. We could carry on with the Wikipedia article, but we're not here for that. We're here to see the paintings and talk about her artwork. There's only 13 on here. She must have done much more. It can't be exhaustive, this collection of paintings on Wikiart. But, I think it's important that we look at it from a different angle every now and again. We're looking at these sort of male juggernauts of painting like Picasso, Matisse, Cézanne, things like that. But all these people around them had a great impact and input into their art, and it's just the way the story is sort of narrated sometimes from maybe the critics and things like that, who would like to create a sort of narrative of the 20th century and what was happening, that these stories got told in a certain way. It may not be quite how we think it was. Right, let's find the beginning and have a look now. List of works, list of all 13 artworks. I guess they're all here. let's just go. Can we get a full? Here we go. Let's just check that's working. Okay, so here we are, 1943, portrait in black, myself at work. Here she is. She did appreciate Picasso in terms of his cubism, and there's elements of that I think maybe here, but this is still relatively, let's say, standard portrait. The eyes are large. Picasso and eyes is always worth looking at. These eyes, and she's got that hair. Now, the reason I'm saying this is not because I'm saying that maybe Gilot was influenced by Picasso, but maybe Picasso was influenced by Gilot, and he was renowned for copying and taking from other artists, and he would do it quickly and fast because he was prolific and a workaholic, and people would be scared to let him see things they'd been doing, because he'd go home and do it often better and faster. And the man was unstoppable in that sense. It's a beautiful portrait, I think, and she's painting so delicately there and focusing on the canvas, on the painting. She's not looking at herself. Interesting, really, in that sense, because to glance at herself in the mirror, assuming she had one, she wouldn't be able to see the view that she painted. Whatever and I guess she's painting herself there. It's getting a bit meta, isn't it? Yeah, the dress, nicely done, beautiful. Sort of, I'm interested in this kind of older fashion as well. It's so nicely tailored, that neckline and the jewelry and stuff like that. Just really cool. And the hair tied back. A coif. Was it a coif? I don't know. My hairstyle knowledge is not great. Right, the philodendron, the houseplant of many a person. Yeah, so this is more in maybe a cubist style, maybe a slightly Fauvist with the colours as well, sort of the wild beasts movement, where they painted things in colours to represent their emotions and not so much what they saw around them. Two plant pots. We have a sort of multi-point perspective as well, which is something that Cézanne sort of started or brought into art, where you've got it's very hard actually to see any kind of traditional 1-point or 2-point perspective here. It's quite flat, but then the way the plant pots sit, you're kind of looking over and into them a bit, but then sort of looking away down to this vanishing point over here, which is probably not quite in step. So like you get to see what's going on here, but you also get to see what's going on there, without these perhaps being a little bit more level. And that's something that I've been learning about, that Cézanne began to bring into painting, so that you got to experience all aspects of the painting. If you were in a room looking at this, you would move around it and see the different parts from different angles, and trying to incorporate that into a painting is an interesting, challenging pursuit indeed. Next painting, The Hawk, 1943. Okay, so this is a little more cubist in terms of the face here. This is nice how this goes straight up. I like that in terms of the composition. I like the greys mixing with the walls in the back, and then we've got the crosses out there heading off into the distance, and this is cubist as well here. I think we have to attribute that to Picasso and Braque. She did quite like Braque. She met him many times. Braque always sort of knew how to deal with Picasso. Was very quiet and reserved. He was friends with him, but I don't think he was like super pally, slapping each other on the back kind of thing. He respected Picasso, but he was always a little bit reserved, and Picasso would go around to his house with Françoise, and Picasso would sort of hang around and try and get invited for dinner, and Braque wouldn't invite them because he kind of knew that that's what Picasso was doing. So they were kind of winding each other up and playing games. It's definitely worth reading Françoise memoir and all at these times. It's so well and deeply written. It's pretty intellectual in terms of discussing how deeply paintings and lithography and things are made. It's pretty heavy in that sense, but if you're interested in painting, it's definitely worth a read. And I think she sort of has given us one of the best sort of primary or secondary sources of what happened in Picasso's life by being there right with him. Here we go, self-portrait, figure in the wind. So the strong nose here, the shadow there, these eyes that are famous in Picasso's work as well, big, curving. I want to look into that a little more and see where those eyes, this eye style came from, both in terms of Picasso and other artists that did this. And I wonder if there's maybe, I've seen like religious paintings of Christ's eye a little like this. I don't know whether that's in the style of the artist here pushing back into that, or vice versa. It'd be worth looking into a little bit more. You know, it's difficult in some ways to do this on the internet because you just get fed the same old stuff. It's kind of, to really research these days is in some ways kind of difficult because you're expected to do it on the internet, and you don't really know what's real and accurate. The hair, it's like a solid mass, and the wind is blowing up this bit here. The ear is kind of being reshaped. It almost reminds me of a Barbara Hepworth sculpture. And the lips are soft and round on the bottom, and sort of, I don't know, angular and cubist on the top. The eyebrows also coming in. The face is obviously not totally, I don't know, it's not accurate, is it? But and the shoulder comes in quite nicely. It gives me Greek goddess vibes for some reason. It's pretty cool. Right, this is Abstraction of a Nude, and it is definitely abstract. Let's see if we can pick out a nude there. Well, maybe here, look, maybe a leg, a back and posterior. There, here a head, here a body. Challenging. A rug. What do we think of it overall in terms of its total abstractness? There's definitely balance to it as well. Balance. The colours are interesting. They're very sort of muted. Whenever I use colour, I just start throwing reds and oranges and all sorts of crazy stuff in there. I really should try to be more restrained and try these more restrained palettes out and see how it affects my artwork. It'll be quite interesting. I don't know what to say about it beyond it being an interesting exercise. I don't know, a study, a philosophical exercise, and she was extremely intelligent. She would have a long and interesting discourse with you about this, about how it's all put together and arranged. Adam forcing Eve to eat the apple too. Interesting. Is that Picasso? Could well be, I don't know. What do we say? It's kind of drawn. Look at the lines here, cutting this way and then that way, creating some kind of 3D within the 2 dimensions. We've got these nice lines for the hair, and down there, there's these, they're almost Egyptian, aren't they? In like the hieroglyphics. There's some kind of bed in the background, and the hands are interesting as well. And then this blends. Is this? It's interesting. That's almost like hands as well. 2 fingers coming down, but then this is sort of bent and mutated. I don't know what the circles are about here. I like it. It's interestingly done and stylized in a very nice way, and it's got this Art Deco feel about it as well, which kind of fits ish with the time. Yeah. Okay, this is more complete in some ways. The White Shadow, 1954. So this is much later now. I can't quite remember when she left Picasso, but I think this may be post her relationship with Picasso, very close to the end. And she went on to teach art, I think, and mentor other people. She continued her journey. Unfortunately, Picasso she had quite a blossoming career at one point, but Picasso managed to sort of get her blacklisted from many of the galleries by refusing to sell his work to those galleries if they were supporting Françoise. So she was pushed somewhat into obscurity. What do we think to this? I love the red up here on the back wall, hitting the lips there, and the restrained, reclined head with the hair coming down and underneath, and then the hand going round. We've got elements of cubism in here, but it's also brought back much more into the real world. I'm reading a book here, the legs folded. Maybe it's playing with this multi-point perspective again here. This is quite a solid bit of perspective down here, and then up at this end it feels flatter somehow. Interesting background up there. We've got the bed sheets. It's the eyes closed and looking up and away. Obviously, I don't. Well, maybe your neck can do that. I don't know. Mine can't. Let's check the next one out. Okay. Theseus. There must be quite a lot of Françoise's artwork out there. I wonder if some of it's undiscovered. You know, could you bump into some kind of, you know, antiques fair and nobody really know what they've got? It'd be nice to get your hands on some, wouldn't it? In that way, how exciting would it be? Right, let's have a look at this. Quite abstract, quite cubist. I don't know why. It reminds me of like the front of something like a BMW sign or something, but extra complex, on the front of a bonnet of a car, of a race car or something like that. Quite interesting. I could have done this a while ago, couldn't I? Look, but then you can't see the names of the works and things like that. Red, a little bit of hint of green, and the black and the blues down there, and the orange underneath, and then the grey painted over the top, and some semi-erased lines as well, make it quite interesting. Definitely pushing the boundaries. Wow. Daphne, 1991. So this is close to the end of her life. And she's kind of come into her own a bit here, hasn't she? It's very feminine and powerful as well. The pose of the woman is powerful, and also free and kind of what's the word? You know, it reminds me of like a yoga pose combined with childbirth. It's spiritual, isn't it? And this is like, is this blending into a tree or the sky at the back here? It's layering beautifully, and it's almost got like a collage like look to the way it's put together. Interestingly, nothing on the face, maybe to allow us to concentrate more overall on the form within the painting. This is tree-like, isn't it? Here and up here into this sort of blown out umbrella shape. The hair down here. Very interesting. Right, what have we got here? Oh no, I have accidentally gone out of the thing. Let's find it again. Let's find it again. Shouldn't take too long, because they've not got many on here. I wonder if we could find extra works and put them on here ourselves. So that's definitely 1991. Is that the same name as one of Gustav Klimt's paintings? Let's not go down that rabbit hole. Idle Child and Tulips. Okay, so Picasso and Co, they did like their mythology. I'm almost sensing some of that in here, like Tauruses, bulls, things like that almost. And there's a lot of bullfighting going on in their lives. So the child, is the child Gilot's daughter? Is it her? Is it someone else? We don't really know. We've got this. I guess this is the idol, and this is the tulips, I guess. Very red in the background, very flat, no perspective really to speak of. The blue allowing us to frame and sort of show the contrast of the flowers at the front. The eyes again, those Egyptian style eyes. I am going to look some more into the eyes, and also hand poses are quite interesting in art as well, because some of them have religious meanings. I do like that red. That is an interesting colour, especially with the green at the bottom there. Wow, this is cool. Renewal, 1992. I've got like these mountains almost up here. And it also reminds me of a cocktail, like a drink, but with mountains and nature and everything coming out of a sort of a large Knickerbocker Glory or Sunday or something on a table almost here, the glass at the bottom. That is interesting, isn't it? I love the yellow here. I love this red. And just a little line there. It's attentions to detail like this. This is kind of cubist at the bottom here, and then it breaks away. Very nice. Return to the House of Sun, 1995. She had a long life. She was like, I think she was nearly 100, or maybe even 100, or 101. She outlived her son, which I think in some ways is sad, and that must be a strange thing to experience in terms of living a long life as well, rather than, because I think the son himself was like, I think he died like by modern standards reasonably young, but not super young like a child death tragedy or anything like that. So what we got this bird. Return to the House of Sun. I've got the bird figure flying down. What's this? This is like a lake or the sea or the ocean. It's got a Greek mythology feel again to it somehow for me. Like you're in the islands of Greece and mythical birds flying down. Is this like, this feels nautical at the bottom here, even though it's quite abstracted. And you can see underneath this white paint there's been previous layers of blue by the looks of it. This blue here, I guess, and then she's over washed it with the white here. It's quite interesting. Some scraping. It's interesting to see the techniques of how it's done. Good composition. Quite nice. It's not the most high-end bit of art critiquing, is it? Saying quite nice, but you know, sometimes that's what you got to say about things. This is the last one on here. In all simplicity, 1997. She really did keep on going. She spanned eras of time. I was 17 back then, and she was still painting. And she was hanging out in, well, yeah, new Picasso. The Second World War was sort of going on and things like that. Bizarre to even think about. Some turquoise blue, some more blue. She liked her red background, and I don't blame her, because that red, however she's made it or used it, is very, very nice. 3 balls, spheres here on some kind of plinth. Got the multi-point perspective again, so that would be going up, and ordinarily I guess you'd imagine a 2-point perspective that would be on the side, wouldn't it? And you wouldn't get to see that. So she sort of used the multi-point perspective to allow us to see what's in this sort of dish here, and we get a slight hint of something going on, maybe horizon, some kind of statue or something up here with a sort of line that indicating maybe a shadow line or something towards the horizon, giving us a little bit of perspective to work with. And then the multi-point here, and this nice streaky bit of blue down here. Such a cool signature as well. Really worth I mean, that in itself is a piece of art. There we go. Françoise Gilot, in all simplicity. There she is. I really do think she's a fascinating historical figure, well worth learning about. And it is nice now that we can look back and maybe incorporate other people into this narrative that's been sort of so centered around a few figures in a lineage of like the explanation of what art history is. And maybe now it's time to break that down a little bit, have a look at the fringes and bring everybody into the same room. Tracy Emin said that art is like a giant hotel where you can just keep adding rooms, and there's rooms for everybody, and there's space for everyone in this hotel. You just put another room on and they can go into there. You don't have to exclude. I really do like that way of thinking about it. Okay, Dead Art Studios, Wikiart Deep Dive. See you next time.